Alright, we have this Generac Guardian 16 kilowatt generator. We're going to run it through a full cycle today, but first let's have a look at the whole system. So, I installed this unit a year and a half ago, and it is in near the coast here in Oregon. So it does get quite a bit of weather, and you can see that it's got some stuff, some moss and spiders and you name it on there. So this door design is actually something that they end of last year changed their model, so the new ones won't have this door, but the guts inside and everything are the same. So right here is the main. You can see it has 65 amp overcurrent protection here on this 16 kilowatt generator. So if for any reason you're on the generator and you overload it or short it, there's that one right there is a potential for trip. But usually if you overload the thing, it will shut off on the computer first. So if you open this guy up here, and forgot to say here, we have this yellow light on. I left that on purpose, just so you can see it's got the green and the yellow. So in here it says inspect battery. That'll come on after the first year. So we can go in and just acknowledge that. Now over here you can see there's no more yellow on. And we can kind of get this all cleared off. There's cobwebs out of here. So this guy does exercise normally to keep the moisture driven out of it. We can also see here, push escape. Then we go to submenus. Go to maintenance, and then to run hours. We can see that it has 25 run hours. So this guy right here should be ready for his first maintenance here pretty quick. So I'll have to ask the owners if they want to do that today or do it down the road. So here we have the, back up a little bit here, the whole electrical system. Originally they just had the two panels in the middle there, and the only thing on the right one, which would be this one here, was the electric furnace. And we took that electric furnace off of the they took the electric furnace out of the house altogether and put in a propane one when they put in the generator. So this guy over here, this guy over here on the right was put in, and they had a portable interconnect to that panel. And they had moved about half the house over. And originally that's what I had put on the generator, and I came back here a year later to basically put the other half on the generator. But because that generator won't quite be able to run everything at the same time, we also have some load shed modules, which are these guys here. So if the generator were to get overloaded, then that will kick those specific loads out. So involved with that, I actually upsized the feed to this transfer panel. That way it'll have more power from the utility than it does off of the service. So here off the service, we have just the main breaker in here, and everything else in this panel is all spare. There's nothing in here because that was the old panel for the furnaces. Then on the right, this has a lot of branch circuits in here. That's the one I marked extra for Bill here. This is one that they do have some problem with occasionally if they run the Traeger barbecue and the hairdryer at the same time. That one trips. So that got moved from another panel to here. So outside in bath circuit, where it's right in here. And everything else here, this job, it gave me a lot of little headaches, like multi-wire circuits that weren't on different phases properly and put together. So I had to do some changing and moving and relabeling, and it's been a little bit of a hassle. But we're all together now. The bottom two here are spare. Everything else here is on. And we got our load shed modules. And so probably what we're going to do here shortly is try to get this thing running and try to get it overloaded. Alright, so I'm going to start our cycle by simulating an outage. I'm going to grab the main here. We'll just click that off. See, everything went dark. Should be a utility delay. You can hear the generator going there. So how these things actually work is they monitor the frequency of the power generated, and if you overload the generator, then it'll slacken, the motor speed will slack a little bit. It'll slow down the motor. The RPM will actually drop because you're working it. So what'll end up happening is there's some electronics in the top here where the blinking light is, and it's got kind of a frequency meter in there. And when it senses that engine speed has dropped below the threshold, it will actually kick the load out. So and then it will keep it off for initially, I believe it's 5 minutes, but check your manual, make sure I have the times right. It'll be 5 minutes plus there's a little potentiometer in here, and you turn that up to stagger the loads coming back on. I think every step, I believe, is 5 or 10 seconds. So it'll go between 5 and 6 minutes getting cut out. But if the same load module, when it fires up, if it kicks the generator out again, it'll go from that 5-minute lockout or load shed up to a 30-minute lockout. And that way it'll give a chance for something like a water heater or a larger pump or something that might take more than 5 minutes to get caught up, and then it'll cycle it back on. So here we're going to shed the range, the water heater, and they wanted the dryer on here as well. So there's plenty of potential load that we can try to load this thing up with and try to get it to kick out. So we're still blinking away here. Our house is all powered up. So, and also kind of a note of the architecture of this system. So this is the main breaker from the utility that powers up these breakers here. This breaker right here, this sub main here, it comes across to the transfer switch, which is right here. Now this is where it chooses if it's going to take power from the utility or the generator. The actual logic is in the generator to decide, but right here is the actual switch that actually keeps the two from interlocking together, so you can't accidentally hook the two together. It won't allow it. It's mechanically interlocked. So the load of this switch comes down and feeds this bus bar. This breaker here, it goes and feeds the old generator panel over there, which has about half the house on it. Then our other half is located right in here. So if for some reason they overload this sub main here, if you're at a little click there, the water heater just kicked on. If for some reason they overload this 100 amp main here, it'll trip, the generator should fire, and then take the load. So if something like that happens and we've got too much load on here and we need to do something else with the system. So we're running it through the tests here for the first time, and if anything trips, we've got this breaker or the individual branch circuits here or there, but the only ones in these two panels should be this guy right here. So our dryer here is blinking. It should come on shortly. I think that's going to be the next one to come on. And there's our dryer. And then finally we got probably another 10-20 seconds and our range will come back on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in the house and I'm going to turn on the dryer just to get this thing loaded up, and that could even be enough to trip it, but I don't think it will, but let's see. So we're in the house now. As you can see, there's lights on, so that is working. So we're going to go to the dryer here, And we're gonna, if you can kind of hear the generator in the background, we'll see if it won't bog down. So there's our dryer running off of the generator. That's running off just fine. We'll go in here and see if our range has kicked on yet. You can see right here our range has. So it's got blinky. So what we're going to do is an upper oven bake. So this guy here is on a preheat here of this oven. So now we got the dryer on. We got the oven preheating on this 16 kilowatt. And we're going to see if we can't get this thing to bog down. I don't know, this isn't my oven. Hopefully I got it set right. To broil. This guy should be humming along now. We are not doing the. There is another warming oven down here as well. So let's try. So that heating element definitely is on. So let's try lower oven. Turn that on. So the lower oven is on. Make sure nothing in here. Okay. You can still hear the dryer going in the background. Now let's try to get some heat going on here too. So we'll move this off. I don't suspect that I'll be able to get all these burners on before tripping. I'm just surprised this thing honestly hasn't. There we go. So what happened there is we finally found the trip point, and we had all 4 burners on, and then it just killed that other stuff. But if you notice, the lights are still on. Our generator is still running. And you can see all of our lights are blinking now. So if we wait another 5 minutes, we should see these kick back on. Alright, so we can see here it took about 5.5 minutes, give or take, and our oven has come back on. And there we go. So I'm going to go do the shutdown cycle on it. Alright, so I'm going to turn... sticks. I'm going to turn this guy back on. So the whole cycle should be when the power goes out, it will have a utility delay to make sure that the power is really out. Then it will start up the generator. It'll warm the generator up. Yep, there's the back. And then it'll switch over to the power over to this. Then 5 minutes after it gets going again, these load shed modules will start clicking back on. Then when the power comes back on, like it just did, it'll wait for that short delay again to make sure that the power is really back on. and then it will cycle it back to the utility, and then it's going to run that generator for another 60 seconds in a cool down mode. So we're just running in that cool down mode right now. And then on top of that, I have this one set to run weekly, so it'll run its cycle weekly. And in this climate, I kind of prefer to run it weekly because it's so moist here in Oregon. So you just heard it shut off there. It's so moist here in Oregon, and I want to make sure that it drives as much moisture out of the compartment as possible, especially down here on the coast. So that's the full cycle, and there you go.